想刚才开始的时候跟各位介绍，你听到他讲的话，你会觉得 excited。我们这个世界正在变了啊，台湾并没有缺席，我们大家都在努力。那我下一个要介绍的一位是从韩国来的啊，他的工作经验非常多啊。不过一句话来讲啊，如果用2个名词来代表他，这个人是一个金融才子啊。那第二个，他的职业叫做职业的这个事业的一个 founder， 一个创业者、创造者啊。为什么？因为这个人很了不起啊。这从很年轻开始，他就是一个非常成功的一个经济学家、金融学家。他是韩国延世大学经济系毕业，后来在美国明尼苏达大学的经济学的博士。那么他现在掌管的一个这个基金啊，叫做 P80集团的基金啊。那 P80集团就是全世界所有最大的基金的前80个里面，大家都投钱给他，让他去管理这个基金。他这个基金的总数大概是超过2兆美元的基金，啊，可以讲是非常了不起的。那个要所有的有钱人都相信你，把钱交给你啊，这是天下最难的事情啊。那他现在是 P80基金，他是共同的创办人啊，跟总经理。他担任过亚洲开发银行的资深经理，EOS 这个投资合作伙伴啊，也是一个创办人跟总经理。然后在 Soros 顾问公司当共同创办人及管理合伙人。那曾经在做过 Deutsche 这个 Morgan Grenfell 这个投资银行的前首尔的分行的总经理。那么他是一个很有名的教授。他今天讲的要讲在亚洲有关这个绿色金融科技投资方面，非常的精彩。我们大家以掌声欢迎他好吗？
我们邀请 PAT 集团基金会总经理 Doug Eugene 与我们分享亚洲洁净科技投资概况。
Good afternoon. My name is Eugene Yoon, as Dr. Chen just introduced. I have to unfortunately apologize because most of what Dr. Chen said is not true. Okay? Okay. If there were a person described by Dr. Chen, that would be better than Superman. Okay, and I'm nothing like that. So I'm going to try and put a few things straight. First of all, I'm here on behalf of P80 Group Foundation, and this is not a fund. What we do is we organize and we coordinate with the large pension funds from around the world. So Dr. Chen was half right. We work closely with some of the largest amounts of money around the world, but I don't manage them, and I certainly don't manage the funds there, okay? I've done a number of things, so the other lie that he told you was he said I'm an expert. I'm not. I'm a student and trying to learn these things just like everyone else, okay? Now, in the course of this talk, I hope I will try and set a few things straight, but I'm from Korea, and I think we share a similar heritage together. My father, who passed away, worked for World Health Organization before, so he would be interested in the numbers that Horace gave. He said, a noble person does not talk about money. Okay? So today I'm not going to be noble at all. Okay? We're going to talk about a little bit about money, and I feel really bad because you know, Siemens and Gogoro gave such an upbeat picture of the kind of things that are going to happen, and you know, I was tremendously excited, and unfortunately, before our coffee break, I need to bring you down to earth a little bit, okay? So get ready for this, okay? As Dr. Chen and other speakers mentioned, we're at an important time. People are going to meet in Paris, and there's going to be some important talks that take place with a lot of the leaders from around the world. This is happening in Paris, and we're not even 1 month away. Okay? Our goal there is to try and bring down our emission of carbon into the air, and I think the goal is to try and reduce that as much as possible. 2 degrees Celsius being the target upper limit for us, but I don't think we're going to reach it. I think that's going to be unattainable. So given that the most powerful leaders in the world cannot get together and reach the target that we think, that the scientists think we need, what can we do to help ourselves? Okay. First of all, I think we need to recognize where the troubles are and who our enemy is. Okay? And I think it is us, collectively. Okay? As Erdel pointed out earlier, it is people who are responsible for much of the global warming that is going on. So given that it is us, I think it is our responsibility, as Horace mentioned, for us to try and put it right. It's going to happen, I think, through contributions from everybody, but in order to coordinate that, I think there's an important role for money. Okay? Let's first of all take a look at kind of the problems that we're facing. This is the CO2 emissions from 1990 and 2012, and I'm not sure whether you can see this picture very well, but look at these, look at the top culprits here. We have China, United States, EU, India, Russia, Japan, Germany, and South Korea. And I mentioned South Korea because I'm from there, okay? And this is not a distinguished list to go into, so keep that in mind. There are a couple of observations that I would like to make here, okay? First of all, the Asian countries, I've listed the top 8. 4 of them are from Asia. And you will notice, if you go to the previous picture, that among the countries in which carbon dioxide emission increased from 1990 and 2012, only the Asian countries showed an increase. Okay? So a lot of the problem, as was mentioned, is happening in Asia, and it is affecting us directly. Okay? In my mind, the war against climate change is going to be won or lost in Asia. That's why it's so important for us in Asia to think about this problem and to think about it collectively. I'm very happy that we have our friends from GCCA, Global Clean Tech Cluster Association, who are coming to lend their help as Asia tries to solve this problem together with the rest of the world. Okay. What is going on? As Asia becomes more wealthy, as we become growing economies, what we're actually trying to do is replicate the lives of the Americans. Okay, so people are trying to have better air conditioning, drive larger cars, etc. We're basically adopting the American lifestyle. And Horace, also from America, wants you to drive very fast motorcycles or fast scooters, albeit in a much more climate-friendly way. Okay? And so that is not something we can avoid. We want to try and lead better lives and the better lives you've seen on television, you know, it's faster cars, bigger homes, cooler houses, etc., etc. Okay? And this is happening in Korea. Look how, okay, I'm not so high-tech, so I don't know how to do this with the, what's the pointer? Okay, I don't want to, which is the pointer? Thank you, okay. So that's Korea, and these are the American models. And as you can see, as our economy grows, we're heading straight in that direction. So more carbon dioxide more energy being used and more carbon dioxide going into the air. The same thing is happening for Malaysia, same thing happening for China, and I think India is following as well. And that's really scary because China and India are huge economies with lots of people. Okay? Let's see what's happening. In Asia, we're investing more into renewable power and fuels. That's good news. Okay? In the case of Asia, China and India excluded, I think this graph will give a fairly optimistic view. Okay? It's growing. It's growing even more aggressively and interestingly in China. And I think my good friend Fred will have some things to say about that. But take a look at this. This is India. Okay? I was there 1 week ago speaking at a conference, and I said to them, look, this is not good enough, and they agreed. And I said, India has a great chance to become the green growth capital of the world. Korea used to be the green growth capital about 6 or 7 years ago, but we decided, actually our new president decided, she didn't like anything that the previous president had started, so now we're not the green growth capital anymore. And I told India, you should aim to try to do that, and I think there were a few people who were enthusiastic, but then they said, our government will never do this. Okay, so that was a depressing visit to India. And this story is indeed not very encouraging because India is not waking up to what we think Asia needs to do. Okay? But India is very vocal in trying to get others to do things. So among other things, they're very active in the intended nationally determined contributions. That's a mouthful, so we call it IND, India, okay? INDC, okay? And there's a problem here. Everyone is saying, here's the amount of carbon dioxide or emissions that we're going to reduce. And as was explained earlier by other speakers, we think that there's a chance to get all these countries to state what their goals are in terms of carbon emission and to force them to stay under according to their intended amounts. If you ask me, I think that's going to be virtually impossible. Okay, Korean government from 5 years ago is different from government today. Governments today are not going to be around in 10, 15, 20 years' time. So anything that someone promises now, I think, can be reneged later on. And this is the sense in which, even though the announcements are too small right now, and it's happening too slowly, I think it's too late, but also I think it's unbelievable. There's not a commitment, and we can't force people to live up to their commitments. So what should we do? According to the INDC scenarios, we could do pretty well, but this is such a complicated picture, and I don't believe in it anyway, so I'm not going to try and explain that. Okay? Instead, I'm going to ask a very difficult question, which I think the people in Paris will also be discussing. Where is the money to finance all these climate change-related projects? Okay? So when Horace said, I'm going to do all these wonderful things, one of the key questions I wanted to ask, and Horace later on perhaps, where is the money coming from? Okay? You're doing it in Taiwan. Can you do this in India? Okay. Can you do this in China? And I think Erdal was interestingly said there are great prospects for wind power in Taiwan. And he said the government needs to do something. Is it the government that needs to do something? So if it is, I think it's going to happen too late. Okay. Sorry for the government officials here. Okay. We've seen that the government and the public sector is very slow to put money into these projects. And one of the things you should look out for is what happens to the Green Climate Fund, which is a government-sponsored initiative around the world. It's based in Korea, and we were very happy when we hosted GCF in Korea, because they said, you're going to get $100 billion every year. Okay? That's from 2020, and you're going to get quite a lot of money before that. Right now, it has $10 billion. That's a lot of money, but compared to $100 billion that everyone else was talking about, that's practically nothing. Okay? So the promise is to give a lot of money from the governments, but when you actually ask them to write the check, it is a very small amount. Okay? Interesting things are happening on the PPP side. That's the public-private partnership. So I think there's some hope that World Bank, IFC, ADB, these organizations are going to do more and more interesting things. However, these are few institutions, and the challenge globally is much too large. So what I think is that we need to rely more and put more pressure on the private sector to do its work. Okay? So I think there is some hope here, and there is plenty of money, which I will explain. The question is, how do we get the private sector to fund Gogoro, to fund Siemens, and all the interesting projects, the floors and the green products that you're making here? Okay? Where is the money going to come from? It turns out that the world has quite a lot of money. Okay? A lot of the money, okay, is with private wealth. So your pockets and my pocket, hopefully. Okay? Of that money, around 1/3 is in conventional investment management. So that's where it is. Okay? A lot of the money, as you can see, is with pension funds, insurance companies, and mutual funds. And by the way, these are all in trillions of dollars. That's a lot of money. Okay? And one interesting thing you should note is that the sovereign wealth funds are getting increasingly richer. Okay? What we have done is the P80 Group Foundation actually was started by Prince Charles in the Prince of Wales. And he, being a prince, he woke up one morning and said, oh, what shall I do with the world? Okay, and someone said, save it. And he said, okay, what's wrong? Not enough money. And so being a prince, he said, where's the money? And someone said, pension funds. So what he did was he decided to invite some of the largest pension funds from around the world to come to his home and have dinner with him. Okay? Now, those of you, you're all probably members of pension funds and you put money into your pension fund. Do you ever get to see your CEO? No, okay? These pension fund people are very difficult to get a hold of, and you need to be a prince or something like that to invite them to your home, okay? So Prince Charles did that, and he said, I'm going to get them and have a discussion about how we're going to save the world. So P80, the group that that I'm managing director of, we started this work so that we can mobilize large amounts of money into green projects. Okay, so that was the intention, and so the P stands for pension, and the 80 stands for the 80 large pension funds that are working with us. Our goal is to put large capital into play for green, clean, sustainable projects. And our key was to try and target not only the large pension funds, but all the pension funds, because once the large ones start to move in that direction, the smaller ones will as well. And when we asked them, we brought them all to the dinner table and asked them to fill out a simple survey. They went back to their respective organizations, and we said, define green investment any way you want to. Okay, so you could be putting it into horrible scooter companies that that's ruining the quality of air and so on. But as they could call that green if they wanted to. So there was no definition that was imposed on them. And we asked, how much green investments are you doing? This is back in 2009. And the number, it turned out to be less than 1%. Of all of the money that they had, less than 1%. In fact, it was 0.7%. So it's a very small amount of money that is going into green projects, and that's got to scare us a lot. So we said the job number one is to fix the way that these funds, the large pension funds and sovereign wealth funds are operating, so that more money can flow from the big pension funds into projects that Siemens and Gogoro are doing. Okay? And the way to understand that is to think of a large pool of money up there, okay, and projects, and we want some kind of financial plumbing that will take the money from the pool into the projects. Let me illustrate, okay? Okay. So here we have the large pools of money, and we want to try and move it into the projects that are down. P1 would be Siemens, P2 would be Gogoro, and the others here. So there'd be a host of projects, and we wanted to find ways for this money to go down there. It turned out to be quite a hard problem, and the way normally is to put into play things like the private equity funds and venture capital funds that I work with, okay? But even they have a very shortage of funds that they can deploy. So they rely on larger investors, and normally they would go, these guys would go to them for money, but when they do, they say, we don't know these projects, we don't know the countries that you're operating in, and we're not comfortable with the investments. So what the P80 group did, together with Prince Charles, was to figure out a way to put in some kind of intermediary in there that would allow money from here to go to more comfortably down there, and then that money would flow here, and this money would go into Siemens and Gogoro. Okay? So this is what we were trying to do, and one of the things we found out was that in order to do this successfully, it has to be done in large scale. We needed to bring in top-tier private equity fund managers into play. We wanted also some kind of halo effect, so we needed something like the multilateral development banks like World Bank or IFC or ADB to become involved. And then we wanted people like you, many people in this room, to play a more aggressive role in developing your projects. So we love the idea of Gogoro, we love the idea of Siemens, I love the UA floor and all of these ideas. So the work that you're doing is very important, and what I'm trying to say is we're trying to bring the money down to the project level, but that's not the easiest thing in the world. My time is nearly up, so let me summarize. Bringing money to the project levels is actually quite hard, especially in Asia. And what we're finding out is that investment infrastructure is needed for efficient and expedient investment in infrastructure. So let me rephrase that. We want to invest into the infrastructures that everyone is building. But in order to do that, we found that we needed to get the plumbing right. I call that financial plumbing. And we need to get that infrastructure in place before the other infrastructures are going to be made available. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Yun.